Here's a Man of Steel that's slightly more staction. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Superman for Tomorrow Superman statue. Sent to Earth from the dying planet of Krypton as baby Kal-El, was found by farmers Martha and Jonathan Kent and raised as their son Clark. As Clark grew up, the radiation from the Earth's yellow sun gave him enhanced senses and extraordinary powers, including super strength, super speed, heat vision, X-ray vision, super hearing, super breath, and flight. Now fully grown, he uses his powers to protect his adopted world as Superman. Just before we see how tall Supes stands, which is somewhat ironic to be saying that, of course, because, of course, this depiction of the Man of Steel does have him in flight, and he doesn't have the really means to stand on his own without the included display stand that comes along with him. Either way, though, let's grab the tape measure as we always do, and while I'm doing this as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys, yes, that did provide this sample of the Superman for Tomorrow Superman statue. Then we can have a look at this review. As for the figure's height in flight, you're looking at Superman being about 11 inches of that, or that works out to be about 28 centimeters tall. You may or may not decide to have the two displayed, but for the sake of size comparisons, let's slide over the Superman that we're about to have a look at and bring in a Batman. In this case, this is Batman from the Flash movie. And while one is obviously from a live-action movie, the other one is pulled from the pages of a DC Comics, in theory, until we do get ourselves a scaled Batman. Well, I guess we did have a Hush Batman that's going to be coming out that I would imagine would be of the same size. But if you don't happen to have that figure and would like to display at least a Cape Crusader along with it, it does look like in this case that Michael Keaton's Batman is about the same size as Superman. Obviously, one though is on his legs, the other one has his legs up in the air like this. Happy to see that a trading card at least comes included with the statue, and the trading card itself does seem to have the art stylings of Jim Lee here on the front. Down below, you've got Superman for Tomorrow, and then flipped around to the back, you've got yourself still the same image, at least of Superman's head, and then you've got yourself a small, very easy to read paragraph. The adopted name is very clearly indicated here, although Kal-El on the front of it is not necessarily his adoptive name, but you see that they paired the two together. And again, you've got yourself a nice little paragraph read you can read for yourself. Put that to the side. Now, Superman does come included with a display stand. Here's the thing, though, about the display stand. We'll take it apart. I'll show you guys how everything comes together. First of all, just remove the post here on the back of Superman's body. We're just going to lay it down just for a second here. I did want to show you guys the display stand. It's still the same DC logo stand that we did get ourselves with both Batman and the earlier looked at Flash statue. Done, though, differently is the fact that this one now has a metal post that's lodged into the back of it. So when you get out of the packaging, you got yourself the metal post, you got yourself, of course, the display stand, and then you connect the two together, and you got yourself a place that has Superman hovering. The thing, though, about it, though, is by having this so far back on the back of the display stand, it does result in having then this statue of Superman being way back here. I do wish that it was actually a little further in the front here, more in the center section, so that when you were to then take Superman, for example, which again, you're just going to lift the cape back here, and it plugs in just at the back of his body, that if you had him right more in the center, I think it would be a little bit more evenly spaced out on either side of it. Where you connect it right now, and basically you're just going to take this very large, almost triangular plug, and you're going to line it onto the back of Superman's body, getting it, of course, around the boots, plugging it in place. But just to kind of show you, though, we'll just twist the post around there, just to show you, though, where Superman is situated on the display stand. It is a little bit further back, just to drive home that point a little bit further. You can kind of see how far back that Superman statue now is. I do wish, again, that they could have made it a little bit more centered. So at least, of course, proportionately, I guess, spaced out wise, at least the display stand would be, right front and center. Not necessarily so much of it sticking from the front. I can't imagine it's just for the sake of compensating for its weight. The Superman is made of plastic. It's not made of a lot of heavy materials. But again, like I would have imagined, it would have just made more sense to have it right front and center. I guess unless the plan was maybe to use that post for another statue, that makes more sense to then have it further back. That's the only thing I would have said, is I just wish that it was a little bit more in the center. Though getting a closer look at this, let's just for right now remove this from the post. And again, we're just going to detach it because I think it would just be a lot easier to have a look at Superman without the statue's base. And then we'll get we'll put it back onto the base just before we wrap things up. Getting, though, a closer look at the Superman statue, I gotta say, it does look good. From the front, it looks a little full in the face. But I gotta say, though, from the side, boy, does it read like a really strong-jawed Superman. I think the coloring is handled quite well here. You've got the darker color obviously happening here in Superman's hair. But then it seems to be the case that they've added a few little lighter touches of blue. You see it actually a little bit better on the camera, I've noticed, than seeing it in hand. Of course, you got the Superman curl there, ever present. The eyebrows as well as the eyes are handled well, although the eyes are very small. You can see that despite its size, they still managed to put in all the little colors and the highlights and the little reflecting of light there in the middle of his pupils. It's a really nice looking head sculpt. But I think, honestly, it looks really the better looking displaying of the statue, at least by looking at it from the side. I think it's got a really strong presence when it comes to his chiseled profile. I think when you look at it from the front, you more notice the fact, I at least notice more, a little bit more, that the eyes seem very small. Coloring is also handled well when it comes to his lips. He's got a little bit of red coloring that they've airbrushed here, a little bit of a rosiness, I guess, done to his cheeks. There's also a little bit of it down below here in his chin. So the colors are nicely represented here for Superman. Of course, when it comes to his suit, he's wearing more of the classic Superman suit. No issues at all with a Superman suit of classic design like this. The emblem, though, as you can see, for the red portion at least, sticks further up from the yellow. It looks a little too cut into his suit. I wish that this was a little bit more uniformed when it comes to certainly the depth of it, but I appreciate the fact that they didn't simply just print on the Superman logo, that they took the time to sculpt it in there. I just think it's a little higher than it necessarily needs to be. This version of Superman also, when we flip this around to the back, you may notice right away it doesn't have the yellow emblem there on the back of his cape. So if you are one that likes to have the yellow emblem on your Superman cape, you might be a little bit disappointed by the fact that they did choose to leave this off. The cape itself, material-wise, is a soft enough plastic. One thing I was really worried about was removing this from the tray, as you saw at the beginning of this review. Taking this out, I just expected this to be more of a rigid plastic, and I was really worried that this may then crack or snap as I was removing Superman from his plastic prison, but it wasn't the case at all. The cape is quite a soft material, and it has the developing folds and drape the way that it would, of course, when you've got a wind current, an air current blowing it up from the back here. Nice detailing that they've also given him to his lower trunks, nicely handled here in a more kind of orangey red, not really as much of a dark red as maybe what we get here for the emblem. The emblem seems to be a little more of a shade darker than we actually get from the trunks here. And of course, you've got yourself the Superman belt with the oval, which again is all classic looking Superman. The thing I really also like about this specific look to Superman is that they took the time to add the airbrushing where it counted. Not just leaving behind a palette of just a simple blue suit, but they also then went in there and added darker shadowing. So it really helps to accent things like his abdomen muscles, his pectorals, and all the defined sections of his arms are all nicely well painted here too. It's a piece from head to toe that I really feel nothing gets left off on the table. Nothing gets left off, certainly when it comes to this guy reaching the painter's table. He's a really well painted statue. Down below, of course, he does have, again, the trademark M-shaped boots. And again, that's really nicely looking boot. The boots themselves, like the way he's posed, sort of, for me at least, kind of makes him look a little stumpy, like his legs might seem a little too shorter than what they actually would be. But again, by the way they've actually posed the legs, specifically this one having been the bent in the leg like this, I think it probably is one of the things that's maybe throwing off everything. He does look like he has, I feel at least, a very large torso, very long in the torso, and maybe not as long in the legs. Going ahead then once again and attaching him back onto his display stand. The display stand once again just simply attaches onto the very large hole on the back. And while it may be a large hole on the back, at least for Superman, it's not one that you're going to see because, of course, the cape covers it. And you're likely going to be displaying your Superman statue, of course, facing forward like this. You know, again, overall, it's a nice looking Superman. And of course, you can always twist this around as well, so you don't have to have it front and center. The only thing, again, I would have said from this, while this being a great-looking rendition of Superman, I just do wonder what it would have looked better. Maybe it would have looked better by actually having the post a little further forward, right in the middle here. So then it wouldn't look like Superman is always sort of shy, keeping to himself. He needs to be a little bit further forward, I feel. But other than that, he's a nice-looking statue, one of which, if you're a big fan of Superman, you might want to pick up and add to your collection. Because Superman stands as far back as he does on this display stand, what I end up having to do for final looks is I have to have the display stand literally leaning off the edge of my turntable so that Superman looks like he's right in the middle. You may, in fact, have to do something similar as well if you're looking to get this statue for yourself. Put it on the shelf, but not put it in a way that the statue's base is in the center, but rather instead you may have to have Superman in the center, and you may have to have then the display stand leaning the way that I have it right now. It's a strange oversight, and I can't again imagine why they chose not to have the statue's stand, the post, of course, that attaches onto the back of Superman's body, not be the thing that's right in the middle of the display stand. Not unless they're planning to use the stand for something else as well, and it just makes the most sense for the next thing, the next release, to have the post as far back as what it is. Overlooking, though, that, it's a nice-looking statue of Kal-El. I'm glad to see that it went back to the classic colors that, again, the Superman for Tomorrow comic run would have. So again, if you like the idea of Superman wearing underoos, for example, I keep making fun of underoos, but the lower red trunks are nice to see him come back to a design of Superman like this. And really, the only thing that's missing to this not being a perfect classic-looking Superman is the yellow emblem that you're not seeing right now on the back of his cape. The cape, I'm glad to see, is using a softer plastic, because I got to tell you, I was really worried removing that from its plastic tray. I thought, I know they've made enough clearance on the back of it, but again, if this is a hard plastic, the moment I go to yank Superman out of the tray, it's going to snap the cape. Not the case at all. Smart on their part that they end up using a softer plastic for the back of his cape, so when you are, in fact, removing it from the tray, you're not going to have as hard of a time as I thought I was going to have when I was first unboxing him at the beginning of this video. Head sculpt is nicely handled here as well. He's a very small-eyed Superman, but I gotta say it does look good from the side. It looks good also from the front, but I think when you're looking at straight front is where you notice that the eyes are smaller than maybe what they should be. Head to toe, though, where in this case the toes are hovering in this time around, but head to toe, it's a nice-looking Superman statue. What do you guys think of it? Let me know down below in the comments section. Could you guys see yourselves wanting to pick up the Superman for Tomorrow statue and adding it to your own collection? Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new Superman for Tomorrow Superman statue that we had the chance to look at in this video. Speaking of videos, if you don't mind me saying, of course, if you guys enjoyed the video that you just finished watching, why not throw it a like? It does certainly help to grow this channel, and it also helps with the analytics. Also, as well, if you guys are certainly on board to see more coming from this channel, if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and that you're also turning on the bell notification. Popping up also at the very end of this video, if you have a little bit of time on your hands, time does fly by pretty fast. That's a horrible Superman joke. But if you have a little bit of time on your hands, popping up at the very end of this video will in fact be a playlist of other things I've looked at from McFarlane's team, with many more videos to follow. And of course, as always guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.